All right. So, Tom, over to you to start.
Yeah, well, first of all, obviously delighted to be sponsored today. It was my first experience of FSQS in the community, and definitely lovely to be invited in. I think one of the things that Gareth mentioned earlier on is anti-competitiveness, and it's amazing to have all of you here in the room today who, outside of here on the street, would probably be fierce competitors, but sitting here candidly sharing your thoughts, so I think it's quite unique. So it's fantastic what you've all achieved together with Helios. So, next slide.
Sure, there you go.
Okay, so we, just a quick intro to Northdoor. First question we normally get is Northdoor, it's a strange name. So just to explain it, Northdoor, we came 30 years ago. We started out in the Lloyd's of London syndicate. We saw an opportunity there to digitize the way that they were working. It was all very analog before. So Northdoor, if you've ever walked down past the Lloyd's of London building, there's a big white stone entranceway, the old way before they created the new kind of glass and metal entrance. That is the North Door of the Lloyd's of London building. So that's where it comes from. So over the last 30 years, we still have an insurance arm. So we have an underwriting application that we provide. We also have then moved into financial services and almost every other sector you can imagine around things like data and AI, modernization, looking at cloud where it's appropriate. What we're looking at today really is data security and supply chain risk, probably most appropriate for this audience. Go to you, Nick.
Yeah, and so Arctic Wolf are here today as a partner with Northdoor. So we're a technology vendor, innovative startup headquartered out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, but we have European presence. And we're really focused on security operations as a service. So a lot of the conversation that you've had today around governance, data centralization, handling that data, mining that information at scale to actually get the right outcome that you need to first time round, but also with shrinking budgets that we're seeing, across the board. And we firmly believe that cybersecurity is not a tools problem. You can't buy another tool to get yourself out of cybersecurity. It's more people and process and governance of your organization. And it needs to work across the board. It's not an IT problem, it's a business risk, ultimately, as we saw before. So I'm going to cover a little bit about how we got here today. And these are kind of old slides. We did some updates last night, but it looks like we didn't get the new ones added. But we're going to do a rapid fire. How did we get to the cybersecurity market that we're in today? What are maybe some of the things that we see coming for the next year or so? And then we're going to hand over to Tom to talk about digital security and supply chain. So really what I wanted to start on is the attacker, right? So all of us in the room work for different suppliers or buyers or whatever it may be, but actually we're all competitors in some way, but ultimately we're not the bad actors when it comes to cybersecurity, right? We are a community of people that need to work together to protect ourselves against the bad actors, which ultimately are the attackers. So this is valuable. This is so important to build communities like this, to share information, and actually to be open about things, because we can all learn from each other. And actually, I'm a big supporter of these kinds of events. So cyber attacks have absolutely come on in the last 15 years. And it started off with a script kiddie or a technologist, where it was really about achieving cyber street cred, or could I get into, or what happens if I were able to get into an organization as such. It wasn't really to do much damage. It was just, could I achieve that? And I can go and tell my friends on ICQ, if anyone remembers that from many years ago, about, hey, look at what I achieved here. However, the problem where we are now is the emergence of the opportunity in a financial way of exfiltration or blackmail or whatever it may be has now led to where we are today. So if you think about why organizations have pivoted to this way, it's ultimately because of the internet. It's where money is. It's started with credit card scams and theft and kind of ID theft. But the anonymity of the dark web or the plain text web and the internet and the connectivity that we have of all of our companies put together has allowed bad actors to amass and be able to attack us en masse with pretty much anonymity in the environment, if I can say the word properly. The second challenge that we've also now introduced to ourselves is data is absolutely a vital commodity. You hear the stories all the time about data is the new oil or data is the new gold. It's absolutely true. Data is wonderful for your organizations to get more value, to get more insights, and to get more competitive advantage. However, data for a bad actor is even better because it allows them to see a window into your organization. They've got data mining tools much like you do, and they're able to extract out the confidential information that you don't want them to get. That data is sold often on the black market. So typically the bad actors that actually do the initial breach with you are not the people that would actually exfiltrate or end up doing the blackmail of that data. There's a big chain of events that happens from one side to another. But data theft is absolutely now lucrative. You hear about ransomware all the time. It's in the news every day, right? The National Cybersecurity Centre put up and said ransomware is the UK's biggest threat to their digital survival in every organization, moving forward. It is a real thing. But it's a real thing because of the data that we hold and the data that we need to protect. So it's all about monetizing those attacks. And that's where crypto comes in. I'm a big fan of cryptocurrency. It's wonderful in many, many ways, but actually it can be used in detrimental ways. It can give you that quasi-anonymous way of transacting and cleaning that money without any governance to it and without any record of it. But also it allows us to facilitate many types of crime. So dark web, you can look at illegal firearm sales, you can look at drug paraphernalia sales, but that also goes hand in hand with cybercrime, right? It's all linked together in one big web. But it makes targeting individuals incredibly easy, because now you've got a really easy way of exfiltrating data, you've got a really easy way of getting people to pay you, you've got a really easy way to clean that money and actually then get it out to some other, potentially legitimate organization elsewhere. And where we are today is we're in the world of cybercrime-as-a-service. So this is not the script kiddie, this is not the people sat in their bedroom, this absolutely is an organized ring. This is a company. They have HR departments, they have purchasing departments, they have employees of the month. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but it absolutely is now a legitimate business. And that's how serious we all need to take this, because it's a commoditization of cybercrime. So you can go and download, a non-technical person right now can go and download a piece of software within 3 clicks, which will allow you to scan the internet for a vulnerability that you may have. And then once they do that, they can sell that brokerage to a cybercrime organization and make roughly 20% of the exfiltrated money. Simple, very, very simple to do, very, very easy to do. And that's the risk that we're all fighting and trying to face together, because it enables these non-technical people to be able to participate in cybercrime. So where we are today is absolutely a lucrative business. This is an $8 trillion industry globally. Ransomware is where you have technology that's installed on your environment that encrypts your data, and hey, you can't get the key to decrypt your data unless you pay me money. And that's worth about $30 billion every single year. What you may not hear about is something called BEC. And BEC is Business Email Compromise. And this is worth about $26 billion. And BEC is actually on the rise big time and is more prevalent these days than ransomware. And what is BEC? BEC is being able to get access to an employee's mailbox. So it might be that you've had your credentials stolen, your password stolen, you might have reused passwords on the dark web, reused passwords and they've leaked on the dark web, I should say. Or it may be legitimately that you use a tool like Okta or LastPass or even 365 from Microsoft. If they can get your account details and they log in as you, they're able to send malicious emails under your name telling someone on the receiving end to do something of their choosing. And we often see that in a way of, hey, here's an invoice that you owe us, but we've now changed our bank account. Here's the new bank account details. And it's from a legitimate email address, from the person that you know, or maybe a supplier that you know, with an invoice that you do owe yourself, but with a brand new bank account. And you go, yep, this checks out, we owe that money, yep, it's in this time frame that we should be paying it. I know that person, I'm going to pay the money. And you only know about this when that company calls you up and said, hey, you've now exceeded your, the time frame of when that invoice is due. We see this every single day. And this is a huge part of that supply chain risk that we all need to be careful of and be able to watch for, because ransomware is not the only thing to focus on. And this is absolutely growing every single year. So if you think this is bad, it's really hard for us as end users, because we're the ones, we're not the weakest link in an organization, right? Every single one of us has a cybersecurity role in our business, but we're not the weakest link, we're the strongest link. And the thing about cybersecurity is it's all about building a culture of security across the whole business, that we want to protect our business. We don't want to be penalized, we want to improve the organization, right? Because we feel proud of doing this. So here's just some examples of what we see at the moment. So anyone here use Google? Show of hands if you do. Yeah. So one of the big techniques that we see right now is using sponsored links on the top of Google. So a bad actor can go and sponsor Google at the top for something legitimate that you're searching for. Salesforce.com, Workday maybe, it could be PayPal, whatever it may be. They have a sponsored link at the top which takes you to somewhere that isn't the legitimate website. Who here clicks the top link? Because it's got to be the best one. And I've been guilty of it in the past, right? We all do. So here's an example. That takes you potentially to somewhere else. But the other thing that you see an awful lot, and you may not be able to see this, hopefully on the TVs you might, but if you've got a website, just take a look at what characters are being used, because it may look completely legitimate, but it might actually be a different character that's part of a different language, but it looks to the untrained eye that it absolutely is the same. And that's how they're able to register completely different websites to take you to something malicious. So this is called SEO poisoning. And this is a big technique that we've seen in the last 18 months of how to breach end users. Again, here's another example, a search result looking for Microsoft Visual Studio that takes you to a bad link at the top, and bang, you've now been completely commoditized. So, just to finish off here, the future of AI, wonderful. AI is wonderful, it's absolutely great. Yes, it's going to make huge improvements to our lives. The downside to this is AI is already being used by the bad guys. So we're one step behind where they are today, right? And we're always going to be one step behind, and we have to be comfortable with that. And AI is going to do some great things, but it's also going to help facilitate easier, sophisticated cybercrime. It's going to allow this to be accessed by more people, but it's also going to help us with emerging types of crime. So here's some examples I can say. AI-powered bots that you could have. AI analysis, if they download a terabyte's worth of your data, they can run that through an AI algorithm and get the confidential information and outcome within minutes. But the big one that I really want to just leave you with is the AI used for social engineering. Historically, we looked at phishing emails, and we looked at the bad English or the mislaid kind of logos, and it didn't look that right. So you can kind of tell it was a phishing email, right? These days, you can now generate a perfect phishing email using something like ChatGPT or something else that you are not able to spot by the untrained eye. And this is going to become, we're seeing it even now, it's going to become even more prevalent. The use of AI in social engineering is huge, but also think about things such as fake videos, fake photos, fake information. How can you trust that the information that you're looking at is real? How can you trust that the video that you're watching is real? How can you trust that the photo that you're being presented with is completely legitimate? It is the insecurity of the information that we're going to be presented at large that's going to be a major cause for changing companies hugely. So that's me, and that's just a little bit about kind of where we got to. I want to hand across to Tom now, just to very quickly cover the data insecurity.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So I think this is it's a really good overview of where we've come from. I think we're not trying to scare you, but it is interesting to see some of these trends. So I think what I'm going to start with here is you're going to be familiar with a lot of these regulation, as everybody in this room is going to be hit by some of these or all of these coming up. What's supposed to be slightly bigger, but if you've got really good eyesight, it's like an eye test, you are all regulated by these. Most suppliers are not regulated by them. So I think this is key, and I think this kind of plays into what Ian from PwC was saying earlier on. So if you take one thing home today, then third-party supplier risk is certainly one that you should be looking at. So in terms of what a hacker is looking for, this is a nice picture. Basically, it's the path of least resistance. You put something impenetrable up, they're not going to go and try to get that. They're going to try and find an easy way around. It's all about the effort that they can put in for the reward that they can get, and also the maximum return or the maximum disruption, depending if they're a commercial hacker or a nation state. And what you may not know is that you and many others broadcast the details of your web-facing assets to the world. So like Nick was saying, very easily, 3 clicks, you can go and scan the internet for a certain vulnerability. We saw CTS just last weekend, you've probably seen, from a conveyancing perspective, it was a Citrix vulnerability that was noticed in August, patched in October, but they hadn't applied the patch. And unfortunately, they've taken down a huge number of, unfortunately for people trying to buy and sell houses, it's all come to a standstill. Okay. And the reason we've kind of touched on patch levels is that there is a recent survey, IBM did a survey of people who had been breached, and 70% of those, it was either a non-managed server or a badly managed server that was affected. It wasn't the crown jewels security system that they put in. So I've consciously picked a couple that aren't going to be represented in this room, so I don't want to name and shame, but the Met Police and Ministry of Defence, you may have seen in the last 3-4 months, both of these were breached. So the Met Police lost 45,000 employees' details, their pictures, their ranks, and the MOD lost some details of some of their highly classified sites. And actually where this came from was the Met Police was the guys that make their badges, their warrant cards, and the MOD, it was the people that make their physical security fencing around the building. So in both cases, it wasn't themselves, it was the attacker coming in through another source. And moving on, MoveIt has been very heavily in the news. So this goes back to that maximum impact. So if I could hack MoveIt and they've got 1,000 customers, I'll then have the choice of, do I extort them or do I extort all 1,000 of you individually? So there's a huge focus. And again, a Swan was another one around retail. So what you need to do, obviously you're well aware of this, but is unpicking the complexity of supply chain. So whether it's SaaS providers and all of the mapping exercise that goes around to that. And then almost finishing off, so traditionally all of you here in the purchasing risk perspective would have done questionnaires. We had a large bank, they had thousands of suppliers, they send out thousands of questionnaires, they get them back in, they process them. But as soon as you process that questionnaire is then out of date. So what do you do? And this 11% is only 11% of you, this is an ICO stat, are actively looking at your supply chain. And this is something that Ian touched on earlier on, is kind of the next phase of supply chain security. So this number has grown rapidly in the last 3 years, but I think this is something that all of you here should be considering. So this is an option. So we're very keen not for this to be a pitch, but it was just, we have a managed service to help you look at your supply chain. There are others as well, but effectively what this is a continuous scan of your suppliers. So imagine it as a burglar doing a drive-by of a property, looking for open doors and windows and what a hacker could exploit. So effectively doing that every day, updating the portal daily, and you get a monthly report which you can then either send to your suppliers or try and get some of those risks remediated. Just trying to get on the front foot of some of the supply chain risk. And then all from a dashboard perspective. So I think this is our final slide, Nick.
I think so, yeah. So, hang on a minute. We've already done this one. I think we can move on.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Let's come back in, yeah.
Yeah. I think to summarize, so I guess really what we wanted to have a takeaway is cyber risk is a business risk, and it's our job combined to bridge the gap between what IT security is and what business level security is. Secondly, it's about sharing information, and humans are a valuable commodity, and we need to share that information. We can't be scared with, oh, I had a breach and I didn't want to tell anyone. Actually, it's important that you do tell people, especially within a shared community, because then we can all learn from that and we can all improve our defenses together. And then ultimately, finally, this isn't a tools problem. So don't, if you're in procurement and you've got your IT team coming to you saying, I need to buy 5 more security tools to keep us safe, that's seldom going to fix the problem. It's about people, it's about process, continuous hardening and improvement. That's where you want to spend your money versus buying more tools, because if you don't have the people to manage them, the tools are just going to generate more noise, which won't ever get visibility of.
Yep, so acutely aware we're holding you from lunch, so yeah.
A couple of questions, yes.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, sorry, if you wanted to go to lunch early, you shouldn't have asked a question. So, you know, AI, thank you also for the nice sleepless night tonight in advance. If AI is being used to create false information, an anonymous source asked, how do we defend against this? What defence is there against this level of sophistication and the rise of the robots?
There is AI for good, right? And that we need to all, in the tech industry where I'm based, we are focusing on building AI technologies and tools for good that will help us fight against that. The challenge is it's an arms race right now, and it's completely unregulated, and it's ungoverned, and what you don't want is having many different people doing many different things, because then you have no standards. And so we as a technical community, across Microsoft, across us and the various security providers, we're focusing on trying to bring everyone together to have a single outcome. What can we build? How should we do that? But we're also working in the US. We're working with the US presidency and the National Cybersecurity Agency to help standardize and build what that needs to look like, because it needs to be regulated. It's got to be compliant. Mm-hmm. The big asterisk there is, whilst we do all of that work, which could be many years, the bad actors are absolutely not regulated, and they're going to do as many shortcuts as they can to get to where they need to be now. So it's a challenging outcome.
Yeah, okay. And I guess all those stats you're talking about are numbers related to things we know about. The key question here is, as someone was asked, how much of this, what's the estimate of how much of this goes undetected? Which is kind of a daft question, but you know, what's the scale of the iceberg under the water?
Yeah, I think historically the time to notice or detect is about 200 days of an infection.
200 days?
Yeah, that's it's coming down. So what we found is that the attackers are looking for a faster payback. So the reason they do it for a long time is they're trying to get around your kind of operational resilience in terms of backup frequency and so on. But yes, it is certainly a challenge.
Okay, so we don't know.
No, I think, so there was again, going back to the IBM study, I think it was 76% of the times that they were attacked, it wasn't picked up by their internal tools.
Wow, that's another less hours sleep. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Give a round of applause.